were completing a 40-year journey that had begun in the land of Egypt as they were delivered from slavery in that country through the miraculous delivery of the dividing of the Red Sea. Now, once again, a miraculous dividing of a body of water has taken place. This time, it is the Jordan River. This was the river that divided the wilderness and the promised land. It was the only thing that yet stood in the way between the Israelites entering into the full promises of God made to them back in Egypt 40 years prior to this time. And Joshua felt that it is necessary for something to be done so that the children of Israel, who would eventually become a nation, would remember the God that had created them, the God who had delivered them out of bondage, the God who had brought them into the promised land. And therefore, that is why he had the 12 stones, one for each tribe of Israel, removed from the very center, the very bottom of the Jordan River, which was now barren because of the miracle that God was creating. To have those stones brought to the other side, into the promised land, and laid one upon another, so that when future generations would ask, what do these stones mean? Those generations would be told the story once again, and Israel would be reminded of their God, the God who had delivered them mightily and brought them safely into the promised land, claiming them as his own, guiding and providing for them in every way. I think that is a fitting passage to use on this Memorial Sunday. For we too are celebrating on this weekend a very similar event. Not so much deliverance from bondage, though when you think back to the Revolutionary War, we were truly delivered from unfair taxation and from a form of political bondage from another form of government. A deliverance that was brought about through the same God who had delivered the nation of Israel, bringing them into the promised land. But our Memorial Day is more for remembering those who had fallen in all the previous battles, beginning with the Revolutionary War up to the present time, in order to preserve the freedom of our nation given to us by our God. And maybe we don't pile up stones, as Joshua had the people of Israel to do, but it was back toward the close of the Civil War, that war that tore the very fabric of this nation apart, that a decree went forward that every gravestone of every soldier, whether North or South, whether Union or Confederate, that each and every one of those gravestones would be decorated in honor with flowers. And it was said that at that time of our nation's history, there was not one churchyard in every city, town, or hamlet of America that did not have at least one gravestone of one soldier who had fallen during that horrible time of the Civil War. From that time forward, Decoration Day has been observed. It's now called Memorial Day. The last Monday of the month of May has been set aside. And we've been doing that now since the end of the Civil War. I believe there are like 19 places in America that claims the origin, the first practice of placing flowers on the gravestones of those who have fallen. It was in 1966 that President Lyndon Johnson decreed that, I believe it was Waterloo, New York, to be the birthplace of Memorial Day. But regardless, that practice is now spread throughout the nation. And so many people confuse Memorial Day with Veterans Day. Veterans Day is when we honor everyone who has ever served or who continues to serve in the military, whereas Memorial Day is specified only for those who have fallen in battle, reminding us of the price that was paid for our freedom, for our liberty, that I think so often we take too much for granted, especially our religious liberties and rights. If we were living in a nation where we were not free to worship, we would long for the day when we could gather like this and not take it for granted and say, well, if we don't have anything better to do, we'll go to church. Those people living in China who don't have the freedoms that we have would just long for the day that they could do what we're doing here this morning. And in part, it is because of those noble and brave men and women who gave their blood, who gave their life, so that we could continue to enjoy these freedoms.
Amen.
My father served in the Korean War. As a matter of fact, he was in Korea when I was born. And he was right behind the front lines, and one night his regiment was called up in the middle of the night, called out of bed, and was told that they were about to go to the front lines. And the commander was trying to make a point. He took the rifles from them and threw them at them and said, "This is your best friend, take care of it." And my father said he thought, "This rifle is not my best friend. The true and living God, the God of Jesus Christ, is my best friend." Fortunately, he was not called up to the front lines. Those orders were canceled. But when he came back, he brought a lot of souvenirs from Korea. And most of those souvenirs I've given to my sons, so that they might remember their grandfather. And I'm sure that each and every one of us who have had people, family members, friends to serve in the military, we have some souvenirs of their service. We may keep those souvenirs in a drawer, in a photo album, or whatever. But it is our memorial to them as we remember the price that they paid, maybe not in giving their lifeblood, but being willing to do so and giving so many years of their lives to their country, to their nation, and to us. We may not pile up memorial stones, but we have memorials. We have those things that we cherish, that we hold on to, that we take out of the drawer, or we look in the photo album once in a while to remember and to give thanks once again. And as Christians, as members of the church, we are surrounded by memorials. We have the scriptures that remind us of the greatest sacrifice that was made, not only for us, but for the entire world, the sacrifice that was made for us through Jesus Christ. We have Holy Communion, in which Jesus says, "Do this in remembrance of me." We have the cross that many of you wear around your neck, the cross that we see there, not only the brass cross, but the huge cross on the banner. These are our memorials, reminding us of the greatest sacrifice that was ever made to give us freedom. Not just political freedom, but spiritual freedom, eternal freedom. The kind of freedom that no dictator can ever take from us. Because our freedom comes from God. And even if we were in a dictatorship, no one can take that freedom from us. That is ours in and through Jesus Christ. Because that freedom is eternal. And that is the freedom that we have today. And that is the greatest freedom of all. And along with remembering those who sacrificed their lives for our nation, give the greatest acknowledgement to the greatest sacrifice of all. And that is to our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, who went to the cross, who paid the price for each and every one of us and rose again, so that through him we may have the freedom and the life and the joy and the peace and the love